Blah, 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 blah. Oh, we are live. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another Destiny iProcess Hangout, Destiny Movie Night Hangout. Tonight, I'm here with Carrie. Hi, Carrie.
Hi.
And we're discussing the series SENSE8 today. Sounds kind of like sensei, like a ninja master in a way. For those of you who are not familiar, the series SENSE8 was produced by the creators of the Matrix, the Wachowskis, I believe that's how you pronounce it. Quite an awesome show. If you haven't seen it before, well, maybe a few spoilers in this, but I think all in all, the conversation today is going to be rather holistic. And so watching this before you actually see the series may enhance your viewership of the actual show, so you can tune in. Carrie, let's. How about you open up with a little bit of a synopsis for our viewers here today?
Okay, so the series starts off with these random people who start having experiences and like seeing other people or being in the same space as other people. Like they're having these hallucinations of seeing other people's lives or seeing people that aren't there. And then it works into these people start actually connecting and being able to swap places and share skills and experience things together as a group. That's like the basic summary.
Definitely. And I would even add to that, right in the very beginning, like the show starts, there's like a lady there. Basically, she's giving birth. She's giving birth to these 8 people throughout the world. Basically, they're being born into an awareness that they did not previously have. It's kind of like there's something. She basically awakens something within them, and then well, okay, I won't go into too much detail, so we won't spoil for the point. But I found it cool the way the show started out because right away things are happening, and it wasn't necessarily like things were explained very clearly in the beginning. Like you're right, immersed into things that are happening, and it's kind of opens up like the point of what the heck is going on here? Like things are just happening, and then it flashes, all of the main characters, the main 8 who are coming into this awareness because of this lady connecting with them. They're all seeing her and they're all experiencing her pain as like what she's going through, and then flash into the next scene where the 8 are becoming in tune with each other, but they don't really know how to explain what's happening or not. Like in one of the first scenes, the cop in the United States is connected with the DJ in London, and he thinks his next door neighbor is blaring on the music, and he's banging on the door, and it's in an empty room. So it's kind of right away like what's going on, what their whole perception is. It's out of whack almost of sorts, as like new discoveries are coming into fruition.
Yeah, and as they get, to be more aware of these changes around them, that's when they start connecting more and more as the series goes on. So first they're like aware of the different sounds, and then eventually it just leads into them being able to completely be together at any place.
Right. Yeah, they're not physically bound by the same like time-space restraints as we typically are today.
Yeah, exactly.
Essentially they can time travel, but in a way, it's kind of similar to, well, like how we've learned portaling exists through Desteni in a lot of ways, right? Because it's not like their physical body, you know, all its atoms up and move itself over across the world instantaneously. It's just like their being leaves their body where they are essentially, and they can step into the other person's body and direct the ship,
Yeah, and
essentially.
they can do it simultaneously. Like they can be at both places at once.
Yeah, which is pretty cool. And then also just even the fact that you know, many beings could be in the one body at the same time, like stepping in with various skills. Um, the show is pretty cool, and I think opening up a lot of regard into you know, giving perspective on a lot of different people's, let's say, preferences, because the main 8 characters, they all come from different parts of the world, and they all live very different lives. So, you know, I think that's a very cool aspect of the show, to just kind of, you know, me as you in another life kind of thing, put yourself in the shoes of others.
Exactly. There's I really liked that when there was a problem, they would come together and it would like time would stop and they'd kind of work on a solution of, you know, how the situation could best be handled, and who had the best skills to kind of step in and direct the point. I really liked that level of support. And also when they were communicating, there was so much genuineness in their communication with each other because they knew each other. So there was really nothing to hide. There's just really no point.
For sure.
So this, you know, yeah, just genuineness just came through in all of their communication.
There was no secret mind in a way, because they were all kind of sharing the same mind.
Exactly.
What was interesting though about their process, and even, you know, essentially taking on the responsibility to really help each other, because they could actually see directly and experience what was going on in the lives of others, is well, that process unfoldment. Because, you know, initially various characters had different basically points of ego of their mind characters to move through, where, you know, let's take one character for instance. uh, he could see, you know, that he had these abilities and what was happening to other people around him, and also that, you know, his actions were directly impacting the quality of life of others, and that for him to make the decisions that were best for all were directly, you know, in contrast to his egoic desires.
Yeah, and the same goes for a character's son who
Yeah,
is Korean. She experienced that same resistance to, you know, being a part of a group of others. She essentially separated herself from everyone, including her family.
right.
So it took her some time to actually not resist being with the others and, you know, being a part of their process of assisting and supporting each other. But she did come out of that. Um, so that was, you know, another example of, you know, transcending that point of ego and being afraid of what's going on and jumping in.
What I found to be cool about that also is, you know, basically it just kind of showing the steps that we take. Like, because the points were new and they were unfolding, and there was definitely, you know, some fear of the unknown, and basically their own awareness within what they were experiencing, what they were participating within. Um, Specifically, basically, the point of self empowerment, as they allowed themselves to take on different moments of responsibility, where they move past their initial resistances.
Yeah, definitely. And to me, I saw that as what we could be. That's our potential. we could be that if we stopped going into our ego and stopped seeing everyone as the enemy and seeing them as us in another life, like you said. Something like that is definitely a possibility to unfold for humanity.
Yeah, it made me think of even just the way, news is structured in the world, and politics to a certain extent, like just the general dialogue of things where, it may be more so, there was just more like solution-based talk where it's like, okay, here's a problem, we got to solve this over here. Okay, here's a problem here, we're solving this. Okay, because we're solving this, it's gonna fix this, and it just like basically like a constant living action as the words being structurally sound in and as the best support. And so it's not a question of can we do this or not. It's a question of how we're going to do this and what's the best way, what are the skills that exist here, and how can we do this best.
Yeah.
Because I mean, within the characters, it's just kind of showing like a small microcosm of the potential reflection on the world scale. But if we look at in any particular, like, let's say you take a country and you look at like what are core issues within that country, and you look at another country's core issues, you can see like, well, if we take the whole world as a whole, what skills exist all over to combat, basically eradicate such a problem and recreate a solution. And
yeah, if we, oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was just gonna
Yeah.
say, I found it just seemed like the characters really embodied that example really well, because it, like you're saying, it was just all very much solution oriented, as like, okay, what's the current issue, who has what skills, is kind of like a dialogue all amongst themselves, as like there was a self-trust point within them all that sort of developed, that was kind of there, as like who best to step forth and take on each particular responsibility. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And where you mentioned that, this could be applied, to the world, remove those boundaries and those points of separation, and work together. Because, I mean, even if we look at the way the world is set up with, with all these countries, with like all the different things they're doing, like India right now is working on their pollution issue. And I mean, the United States, we've pretty much got the pollution issue mastered, so I mean, those are things that we can be sharing with other countries. And I mean, there's other countries that have financial things mastered. Like, I mean, if we look at China and how well they're doing financially, well, at the expense, of course, of their environment. But I mean, if we come together and we stop seeing it as separate, or oh, they're the enemy, and just stop it, we can really create a really cool world.
Totally. Yeah, it's like, stop seeing each other as just like, like, they're there, I'm here, whatever. And as really a united front that, well, we're all contributing to, the whole picture we have here. And that, whether you want to get into liking or not liking it is basically your own sort of dissonance about the whole situation, because I mean, we are the picture. We're the whole picture, all of it here together. And so, yeah, it's just like one big team kind of thing here. And yeah, I just really like the way it moved along with that regard. Um, how how would you say, just even watching that show, did you notice any particular reflections in you moving into Destiny, and even into like the Destiny I process, like because I definitely found there to be parallels with just the way the show moved and my own
Yeah,
individual process.
there were several points that reminded me of what we're doing with Destiny I process and together as a group. The connectedness reminded me of what we're doing on the internet. We meet up, we discuss points, we come up with solutions, and then we have our individual buddy relationships for support and for working things out. And each of us has different skills, and we can offer those skills up when the time comes when it's needed. When you ask questions, just all the support comes in of how can we possibly sort this out. So a lot of their relationship that they had reminded me a lot of the internet and what we're doing on the internet and how we're so connected all over the world. It just removes that whole separation with the internet. That's a lot of what this show just reminded me of, is just that constant, unconditional support. And that's something that we do have here at Destiny.
Definitely. I mean, the internet really facilitates, wow, pretty much instantaneous communication. I mean, the fact that, you know, how we're discussing right here, right now, and it's going out to, yeah, all the corners everywhere. And that point also is pretty cool, just in showcasing like the solution aspect of just being active online and sharing and having the discussions with others about solution-based conversation of what's going on here, you know?
Yeah, and it's kind of hard to have that separation or to maintain that separation when we're all connected.
For sure, for sure. And what I noticed also, like in the show and similar with Destiny, is that it's not really like a choice so much so of who's included or who's not kind of thing. It's the point that it's all inclusive, like everybody's welcome, and it starts with basically welcoming yourself into the group. And very much like in the show, essentially that's how they all kind of came together, is by each one of them, like in their process, having to, you know, say, you know what, like, let's go for this, let's do this, let's make a stand. And it's not like in saying make a stand that the whole rest of their life is planned out by, you know, any measure or not, but it's there comes a point where, you know, I like the saying, till hear no further. You know, you realize so many certain things. It's like you can't turn a blind eye, and you basically kind of activate a purpose within yourself, and really kind of substantiate a grounding of yourself here to a certain extent. And within that, you know, it really opens up the journey that we embark on to ask questions and further investigate all areas, all relationships of ourselves and one another.
It's that decision. Like you said, from here no further. That's it. I'm done living in my own self-interest, and I'm going to start doing what's best for everyone. And yeah, it changes everything. Once you step out of, you know, the me, and it becomes a we,
Yeah.
everything changes. It becomes so much simpler, too, when you're considering everything that everyone is doing and what can I possibly do to contribute and participate and make this better by, you know, contributing my skills to this. And it just really makes this nice whole of things working better and effectively.
Yeah, it makes me think of like ourselves here, you know, as music makers. Like, I mean, you know, our body parts, where we consist of a whole bunch of organs and parts, and we all have like special skills and whatnot. And I mean, we all have a tremendous amount of abilities, and we kind of, you know, in taking on that starting point of regard for one another, and like you say, like flip the me into a we, uh, you know, our actions become rather complementary. And so it's, you know, we allow a sense of harmony to envelop our character, our being, our expression. And I mean, that's just awesome in so many ways, you know, like, it just even makes me think of like a meal preparation, you know, coming together basically, where, you know, everybody contributes, brings a part, and you have something awesome that comes about as a result of that.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree.
That's yeah, that's kind of a cool example, to just even think about the world on like a large scale when we all, you know, with everybody here being on the same team with that regard. You know, it's, you know, we have a buffet of awesomeness here. You know, who doesn't want to eat at the buffet of awesomeness? I mean, like,
Buffet of awesomeness. That's amazing. Um, and it would, what came up for me is we've just been so used to just being alone inside of ourselves that we don't consider, you know, that it doesn't have to really, you know, be that way.
right, right.
You know,
Yeah, like
just
the
let it
contradiction,
go.
totally. Like the contradiction or whatever, like the mind perspective, like you said, be like alone or whatever, it's kind of like the, you know, like table for one, you know,
Yes.
each makes their own like individual personal size platter, you know, not realizing that if we, you know, all share and contribute together, everybody always gets to eat from the table buffet of awesomeness, which,
Buffet of awesome.
that's, I like that. That just kind of came out here, and yeah, it
It's
feels
true.
good to recycle that one. I like it.
Um, you know, I gotta be honest. My favorite part of this movie, I mean, this series so far, was the sex scene. I
Nice,
absolutely loved
nice.
it. You know, when they were all just kind of switching and all at the same place at once, and you know, there wasn't the, you know, that usual point of somebody being the same or a different sex than you.
Right.
Um, it was just in how each of them responded to it differently. You know, so you have one guy that's just like, yes, this is totally normal. This is awesome. You know, kicking back, and then you know, there one guy saying it's the best orgasm he's had in his life. Um, you know, and another, the cop is just totally blown away by the experience. You know,
Literally.
yeah. Um, so yeah, that was just my favorite part, where they were just constantly switching back and forth and just really enjoying that moment of being together and expressing themselves.
It was kind of cool how it all kind of came about too, right? Because it, like you said, it started with like that one guy kind of playing it like all cool, just being like, you know what, like he'd had a like a hard day or tough day, lots going on, and he just, you know, he went basically to give himself that like nurturing support, and he went to like his spa or whatever, like the pool, right? And he was just laid back, lounging in the pool, just giving himself some rest. And then because everyone picks up on each other's moves, each other's actions, like as the living example point, then they, you know, each were basically making their own complementary actions in you know, in support of the initial complementary action.
Yeah, that's a really cool way to put it. Yep.
Like basically the musical song, you know, like, oh, here's the harmony, here's what we're showcasing here, like there's not really a problem. And they kind of all kind of came together as like, yeah, I need to give myself a rest here as well. And then, the next kind
Yeah.
of like, oh, let me stretch out, and it just kind of like moves in together, grooves. And I mean, yeah, essentially, if we had like a world of like pure harmony in a way, the movement and the flow of everything would be just, yeah, totally orgasmic in so many ways and expressions. Not to say that it has to be just, so sexualized, so much so, but just the flow and the movement of being just so complementary.
Yeah, again, it's the buffet. Having
Yeah,
the full buffet.
yeah, like what would you like at your service? We're all here, for the best. Like take your pick. It's all included.
Yeah.
Yeah, complimentary, free for all. Yeah, like
So
that's
what was your favorite part of the movie? What stood out for you the most?
oh, that's a good question. That is a really good question. Um, hmm. I don't know if I have one part. Like I kind of early on, like I'm a big fan of the Wachowskis, especially just for them having done the Matrix movies. I just found that to be so substantial. So right from the get-go, like I allowed myself to have just such an open mind uh, about this show and the series. And I've really taken it upon myself to, whenever I'm looking at anything, that the best way to be about it is kind of is like the buffet of awesome like perspective, where let me see how much I can get from this, as opposed to looking for restraints and limitations on the point. Like, let me see how many dimensions, angles there are to this. And so, I mean, and I found, like as we're discussing, this show is quite substantial and having a lot of consideration and whatnot. So I don't know. I don't know if I have like one specific scene as favorite. I mean, yeah, that sex scene was cool. I mean, I like the action about the show as well. I like the fact that the way the series was kind of put together, and that it's not just in one location, they're all just in one city. It's, it kind of gives the macro perspective of like, you're in India, you're in USA, you're in, Finland or Iceland or wherever, like Denmark. That so things just kind of reiterating like the globalness of what's happening here on the planet at all time. And just the fact that it wasn't is different. I mean, I like the fact that also they kind of included you know lots of different personalities. Like it wasn't just like a typical type of characterization of this person or that person. But I mean, they took, well, basically a whole bunch of different characters, and you could say the characters are generalized to a certain extent, but I mean, that's just because each character has so many dimensions to it, and you can only do so much in so much time. But I feel like the way the show moved, it just kind of kept growing and growing and growing. Like there's so much development that it really, I mean, kind of the show was rather orgasmic in the sense that it's like the song that never ends. Like a good orgasm in a way. Like it just goes on and on, my friend. Because it just like there's so much more direction, there's so much more potential for it to go. It's not like, oh, like backed into a corner, we're stuck here, like, oh, it's got to do this, that's it. It's kind of like a lot of twists and turns, which is cool, I think, because I see that's like reflective of ourself, and as we like open ourselves up in our process through writing and exploring our relationship with words primarily, is that, you know, we develop like our pivoting abilities, like from the perspective of our ability to respond in different scenarios. You know, like we're participating in one moment, and you know something comes up, and it's like, well, I could take it this way, I could take it this way. It's like, okay, look, I got it. Let me test it out this way. And so like the opportunity exists to, you know, move in so many various ways that are harmonious and awesome. Like like the sex scene, back to the sex scene, and that they were all expressing in a lot of different ways, and they were all part of the buffet of awesome.
Yeah, that's the cool thing that we're doing is with the writing and the self-commitment and the self-correction statements. I mean, that's the sweet spot because you're taking apart the problem and you're coming up with the solution, and you're actually coming up with physical ways that you can be the solution. So it just becomes a part of you, that responsiveness. And if you don't really, geez, how can I change this? I'm really not seeing it. You can ask, and someone else has probably already been there, and they can tell you what they did, and they can give you that direction.
Definitely, definitely. Um, what? Okay, so something interesting I noticed is that online, people talking about the show, there seems to be like a real mixed bag of support or non-support for the show. Like some people, you know, saying like, ah, it's so awesome, that's so cool, and other people being like, ah, I totally failed, like I had such high hopes for this show, and you know, two thumbs down, it just totally flopped, like, or you know, I remember I was telling one friend like, because he always tells me like cool things to check out, and you know, I was happy to be like, oh man, I found a cool show to watch. Check this out, and you know, he's like, yeah, I gave it like 10 minutes, and it didn't quite, you know, take me there or get me there. Um,
Yeah, it
I don't,
definitely takes patience. I
yeah,
mean, that's because when you look at who produced it, there's going to be something there that's going to challenge your beliefs. And so you have to go into it knowing that it's going to unfold. It's going to come together. Um, and that's just how these particular guys work. So you've got the characters, like in the Matrix. It's like you've got all these characters, and you're like, okay, so this guy's some computer geek, and he's looking for this guy named Morpheus, and you have all of these different things going on that really quite aren't making sense. And then in one moment, when he takes that pill, it's like, whoa, okay, I get it. And the thing is that this isn't a movie; it's a series.
right.
So there's, a progression. To me, I see that they're going to continue and open up, you know, that original vision for what they would like to show. And that's another thing. A lot of belief systems are going to be challenged because we typically don't see each other, as connected. And we don't live in a world right now that's very supportive. So it's a hard thing to identify with.
Yeah, I definitely, yeah, noticed that, and I was reading, you know, some of the criticisms on YouTube, and some of the write-ups, and you know, it seems, you know, somewhat apparent that basically as like your individual basically mind constructs are challenged, like that's where well, you know, the points are going to open up for you to even further question about how, you know, receptive you are to this or not. And, you know, I found that this show, I mean, like with so many other things, is that, you know, you don't really know until you totally like open yourself up to it, immerse yourself within it. Like, and what it showed me also is just in various things that I've participated within, if, you know, like I'm quick to go into judgment or whatever, or I don't get a feeling right away that, you know, that I deem to be positive, then maybe, you know, I'm having the opposite experience of, you know, some sort of lack or less than fulfillment, which then makes me want to, you know, gravitate away or towards something else that's going to stimulate or impulse me more immediately. While ironically enough, within that, you know, not questioning or checking like where the blockade exists within myself, because, you know, there is a stimulus, but it's like showing me something, or there's a point of investigation where, you know, kind of from a mind perspective, it's like, dare, you know, I dare not go, or if I do, you know, I might I might find some shit out,
Yeah.
and that shit could have, you know, like that could change me basically. And well, as we know from a mind perspective, like change, you know, change, the common quote, change is tough, or change is regarded as difficult. Like we make change tough a lot of
We
times.
make it so much harder than it has to be. I mean, when that resistance comes up,
Yeah,
just don't give in. You know,
yeah,
push. Go for it. Go beyond. See what's at the other side. I, you know, looking at mind constructs that, you know, right now I'm working on one, just deconstructing everything and just looking at all these beliefs that are coming up and ideas uh, and how I use those to just manipulate myself and self-sabotage myself from ever um, going beyond, you know, from ever seeing what my limitations actually really are. You know, I have no idea because I just keep giving in to these thoughts, and they're just thoughts.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
so that's the thing, is when they come up, is to realize, oh, this is just a thought, this is just a belief, this is just an idea. So
Yeah,
what? I'm gonna
totally.
push through this anyway.
Yeah,
You know,
it's
see what's on
like
the other side.
totally. It's like you know, being presented with the buffet of awesomeness
Yeah,
and having all these rules, laws about how you're supposed to behave at the buffet of awesomeness, as like what you're allowed to try or, you know, test out
yeah,
based on your particular preferences that have been programmed and conditioned in. And I found the show to be like cool on pushing that point of, you know, principle like over preference kind of thing, where because the characters, they all have different backgrounds and whatnot, that, you know, basically they stand together as one based on principle. It's not like them standing, you know, like as a little clique based on, they, you know, they all like one particular activity and that's what unites them. You know, it's not so limited from that regard. And I find that a cool way to, I was discussing with someone just actually earlier today on that point. You know, he was saying like, oh, you know, so many people aren't like me. Like I'm so different than so many people. And I said, well, that's awesome. Like, that's so awesome. I mean, like wherever you go, and the fact that you recognize that, you know, you have so much to share with whoever you encounter. And at the same token, you have so much to receive from whoever you're communicating with and whatnot, because you have different perspectives that can basically complement one another, because there's like so many points, you know, within the whole, like a wheel of a bicycle, and there's so many different angles, but it's almost like infinite, the amount of spokes and degrees.
Yeah, and that differenceness, I mean,
Like the same different,
I don't know. I think that's kind of up for debate, you know. There's individuality.
right?
There's like I talk with some friends sometime that just their perspectives just blow my mind. It's something I never considered, you know, but it's a part of getting to know someone and realizing that people are going to have some cool stuff to share, like you said, give and you know, share, and uh, so that seeing yourself as different when our minds were exactly the same way. It's just the information that's in it is totally different as far as the experiences and your education. Uh, but when
That
it comes down to it, we are exactly the same.
totally. I mean, the difference point is really kind of, enveloping the point of preferences, right? Like we all have different preferences, like in terms of what activities we choose to do as exercise, or what foods we choose to eat, or what clothes we wear. I mean, how we say what we say with our sounds, like, but like you say, it's all the same. Like PlayStation me and everybody's a PlayStation kind of thing.
And I like that. What I like that you said, principle over preference. I like that.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
that's a really, you know, good way to sum things up.
yeah, yeah. I'll give like a shout out to I remember Bernard bringing that point up.
Oh, okay. All
Uh,
right.
yeah, it was like it was specifically when he made the decision to stop smoking cigarettes, and then Sunette did a YouTube series, I believe, on that point, principle over preference. Um,
Okay.
yeah, it was some time ago, but yeah, if you haven't seen that, cool to check out.
Yeah, I'll check it out.
Yeah, principle over preference.
Okay.
Um, any final thoughts, Carrie, on our sharings here today?
I've got nothing else coming up. I'm really looking forward to seeing if they're going to continue with the series because I have some ideas of maybe the direction that it's going to go in. You know, when I put two and two together and kind of look at the whole puzzle. Because they did mention that there are different clusters of these groups.
Okay,
So there's more of them out there.
right.
And I mean, they gave a look into one of the clusters, and the woman wasn't very friendly. And she
Hmm.
wasn't very genuine with this one person because they weren't actually totally connected.
That was
You know,
Angelic, right? That was her name, or something like that.
she's the woman
Like
that,
in Iceland
yeah,
or Finland, I can't remember which one.
I
In
think it's
Iceland,
Iceland.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, yeah. Interesting.
So it's kind of a glimpse into, you know, the direction that things are going. I will be really disappointed if they start doing the enemy thing. You know, I think, you know, if they start making this big enemy out of everyone and these clusters or, you know, these groups of people start fighting or manipulating each other, I think at that point I'd be like, you know, I can
See,
see that a series, you know, it's
okay,
everywhere. You know,
okay,
I want to see people working together.
right. What I mean, what is interesting about, because there is the elements within the show that there is the enemy or whatever, like basically
Yeah.
the secret scientist group that has access to this information and is aware that this sort of ability exists within people, and who goes live or who goes active. And I mean, there's some ironies there with how, like, let's say popular science, popular medicine is regarded in diagnosing an injury that may or may not be exactly that, but the you know, the common medical terminology given from a perspective of a strong authoritative stance because, you know, of their background education, you know, specifically like regards to the neurology of their brain. Like like you see when they're, you know, a couple of them have instances where they get in an accident and so they're into the hospital, their brains are scanned, and it's like, oh, your right and left hemisphere are merging. If this continues, it's like, you know, you're gonna erode, your mind's gonna blow up, you're gonna be hallucinating, you're gonna be out of this world, which I mean is kind of ironic because, you know, we look at the construction of how our reality, our world exists as mind. You know, like the whole process here is basically stopping the mind, stopping this world, so we can create, you know, a new.
Yeah, exactly. And I kind of, I don't know, a point of appeal for me is kind of that, you know, bad guy, you know, he represents the system to me, you know. So you've got this group that are problem solving, you know, and then you've got this one guy that's the system, trying to eliminate this sort
Right.
of, you know, connectivity and oneness and we-ness. So I guess I'm kind of okay with that kind of enemy, you know.
Yeah,
Because
totally.
I would like to see that sort of, you know, thinking gone in the whole, you know, we're experts on science when they have really no idea. They have no idea what's going on with the physical body. I mean, science has been so profit driven. They have no idea what's going on. They just make assumptions.
Well, I mean, we see that in the show as well. Like they kind of pry on that point of basically money or research groups lobbying basically onto what force or coercion will be used to, you know, basically keep one in one's place kind of thing, where they take away one's consent, right? Like the one character, for instance, loses.
Yeah.
They basically, you know, word her into a corner legally, which is like very reflective of how the world like exists as the legal system, and the word game trickery that's here, where it's like, you know, due to this and this and this happening, we enabled so and so to sign as like your responsive body. And it's like, no, I'm fully cognitive here. You can see I'm communicating fine. And they're like, no, sorry, we have to keep you here. That's their wish. You know, you're not free to choose, kind of thing. And yeah, a lot of cool dimensions there, basically.
Yeah, and
And
we could really open up that point. That could be a whole nother hangout, just that
totally,
one point.
totally. And another point I just want to touch on before we wrap this up is basically even just the whole like the enemy kind of thing. Like there's basically one guy at the front, you know, like the main bad guy kind of thing, where he kind of gets access into some of the characters' minds, or like that becomes the detriment. And that's very self-reflective of ourselves here, right? As
Yeah, you're
the
right.
ego and one's own back chat as like, you know, where's the best place for the enemy to hide? Like, you know, within yourself. Like there's no greater enemy than you. And so I mean, even to parallel with the Matrix movies, you know, like what does Neo do eventually in the end, right? Is embrace himself fully. You know, he sees the Agent Smith as all like him in another life. You know, it's kind of like they see just Neo as this totally different, but he realized like, oh, that's just me acting out in less than what's best kind of thing. So then, you know, he encompasses everything and then can totally direct facilitate the best order.
So maybe the enemy will integrate. and become one of them.
Well, I kind of think it has to kind of go that way to a certain extent because I mean, so much so, and we see that kind of towards the end of the first season, where the one character, he's become possessed, if you will, right? And basically, there's knowledge and information given as beliefs over what his abilities are, and like within that regard, it's like past history playing out, saying like, no, 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 like you lose your authorship to this knowledge and information because this is how somebody existed within that point of responsibility. And he's kind of questioning that. You see a little bit where he's like, he makes some moves, he pivots in particular directions that cause the show to take a few twists and turns, and you're like, what the how did he do that? Well, he wrote the script. He doctored himself a way out, kind of thing, a way forth, a new path, a new avenue, a new housing of an option at the buffet table of awesome.
Cool, Mike.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I think we're just about out of time. Carrie, before we go, maybe just say a few words to maybe somebody who's watched this show or checked it out for a few minutes and they said to themselves, I don't know, this show is just for me. I'm not into this, that, or whatever kind of thing.
I'd say drop the belief. Just let it go. Be patient. Get to know the characters. And then as it goes, you'll see how everything's connected. And there's a much bigger picture. Even if you look at the track record of these guys that made it, obviously there's something more to it that they want to show you.
Awesome. And I would say exactly what you said totally applies with the Desteni I Process Lite and the Desteni I Process Pro, and just connecting with Desteni, checking out what we are all about, what we stand for, what's what, because really it's just that point of taking on the point of self-investigation and coming together as a group, a community, to discuss ourselves and open up new dimensions, essentially. And yeah, the buffet of awesomeness.
Yes.
Awesome. Well, Carrie, it was a pleasure chatting with you here today.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, we'll have to do more talks, have you on again.
Cool.
And thanks, everybody, for watching. This is another movie hangout edition come to a close, and I bid you all adieu.